Perfect. So in this case, welcome to this session. Thanks for joining me. And I am going to talk today about career change, or more specifically, how we can protect our mental health during a career change, right? Because a career change, like any major change in life, can come with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and this can all take a toll on your mental health. And I'm a career coach. So I work a lot with people who want to make a change in their career, who are looking for a more fulfilling, a more meaningful career. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I became a coach in the first place, is because of my own experience with career change, my own career change journey, which took me from marketing to coaching. It took me from Tokyo back to Zurich, and it took me from a lot of anxiety to a little less of it. For me, this all started about 7 years ago. I was still living in Japan, and I was working at a marketing agency. And I had been at the agency for a few years, and I was to be promoted to a more senior position and to be in charge of a team. And that to me was the first time in a leadership role. I had no experience at all, but I was lucky. My company, supported me, and they sent me to work with a career coach or with a leadership coach. And that was my first ever contact or ever experience I had with coaching. Didn't have any big expectations. I didn't know what to expect. And so I went there and worked with this coach, ended up working with him for almost a year. And in the beginning, when I went there, I thought, okay, this person is going to give me some advice about leadership, some input, some insights. But then we started talking about myself most of the time. He asked me, what are your core values? What's your mission? What is your vision? And I never really thought about any of these things. I never had a vision in my life. I never thought about what my life would look like 10 years, 15 years down the road. If anything, I was thinking ahead to the next weekend, maybe to my next holiday. That was about the extent of it. The same with my mission. Didn't really have a mission that I knew of. Core values, I had some vague idea of what my core values were, but I could never articulate them clearly. And so working with this coach for almost a year was a transformative experience for me. I'm not using the word transformative lightly, because it really changed a lot. I sort of rediscovered myself. I learned things about myself that I had either forgotten or I didn't know about me. And coincidentally, when it came to my career, it also gave me more clarity about what it is I want to be doing, because I was not unhappy in my job at that marketing agency. I find to this day marketing an interesting field. I had a great team. I have a very good, great and supportive boss. So I was not unhappy, but I also wouldn't have said I was fulfilled or that I felt I was doing anything meaningful. And so working with that coach and discovering all these things about me, I sort of, an idea formed of what I could be doing, a career that would actually be more fulfilling, be more meaningful. And coincidentally, that was also coaching. I realized this is what I want to be doing. This is what's in line with my values and what I'm passionate about. I never was passionate about many things, but this is something I felt I could be passionate about. And so that was great. For the first time in my life, I had this sort of clarity I never had. But then a few years later, when it was actually time to make a switch, and that was also the time when we decided to move back from Japan, back to Zurich with my whole family. And I thought, wouldn't that be a good occasion to also switch my career at the same time? Now, what I didn't really think about is sort of having these two major changes in life at the same time brought back a lot of the anxiety that I had. I have to mention here, in the past, I was struggling from an anxiety disorder. It was something that I had. I was in therapy. I sort of had it under control. I was doing fine. I was able to manage my anxiety. But these two changes, or potential big changes in my life, were bringing my anxiety back. And there were other things that were holding me back. I had lots of limiting beliefs. For example, I could never see myself as self-employed. I never thought I'm an entrepreneur. I could not see myself in that role. And these were all limiting beliefs that sort of held me back. And to make a long story short, coaching is what helped me to first identify and then resolve these limiting beliefs. And the reason I'm here today doing what I do right now is really because coaching helped me to get here. If somebody told me 7 years ago, this is what I would be doing, I would not have believed it. No, I would have laughed. But that's why I believe in the power that coaching has, the power to transform your life or your career for that matter. And that's why I'm passionate about it. Now, when I started doing coaching myself, my approach was, I sort of had these two pillars that I called clarity and confidence. I still call them clarity and confidence. And I still think they are the two basic or the key ingredients that we need if we want to make a change. We need to know where we want to be going, and we need to have the confidence, or if we don't have it, to build the confidence to make the first step, to start pursuing our goal. But after a while, I realized that something is missing, okay? Because successful career change is not just about reaching your goal. It also matters how you reach your goal. And by how, I mean in what shape, in what condition. Because you can very well arrive at your goal and already be completely exhausted, right? Burnt out from the journey. And that's not how you want to arrive at your goal. Because in this case, especially, your goal is it's not your end point, it's a starting point. And so, okay, I realized it's about the journey, it's about the quality of the journey. And what this means is, and the quality of the journey is defined by your state, by the state of your mental health. And so today I want to focus on this aspect, on the mental health. Right? It's what I experienced myself, what I'm going to talk about. It is also the work with my clients, their experiences. So I distilled this into the 5 most important lessons that I want to share with you today. The first one is this: analyze your fears, or maybe more specifically, or a way to better put it is put your fears under a microscope. Because as I said in the beginning, major changes, they can cause stress and fear. That's natural, right? That's hardwired in our brain. Our brain interprets change as a threat and reacts accordingly, releases stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. So it's natural to be scared of change. It's really just a matter of to what extent are you afraid? You know, is that fear paralyzing you? Is it holding you back from moving forward? And if that's the case, it's worth digging deeper, getting more clarity about what it is that you're afraid of. Because for most people, or at least for me, it used to be the case, fear was always more like a dark cloud hanging over my head, and I couldn't see clearly, but I could never pinpoint what it was. And so it's really important to get to the root cause of the fear. You know, it starts by broadly, okay, are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of losing your social status when making a career change? Is it financial worries? But then we go deeper. So what I do with my clients is we make a list of worst case scenarios. Write down everything or any worst case scenario you can think of. What could go wrong in the worst possible way, and then write it down. Afterwards, what we do is we give it a rating on a scale from 1 to 10. Okay, how likely is this going to happen? What we do next is we think about what could we do to prevent this from happening? What strategies, what measures could we take so this worst case scenario does not actually happen? In the next step, we think about, okay, let's assume this happens. This worst case scenario comes to happen. What could you do then? Is there anything you could do? And what's surprising, or the way this exercise works, is, first of all, it forces you to really visualize those worst case scenarios. It's something we usually don't do. As I said, it's that dark cloud hanging overhead, and these worst case scenarios, they're somewhere there, but we don't want to go there. They're so scary. We don't want to think about them. So first of all, this forces us to think about it clearly. which makes it more tangible. It allows us to work with them, to, for example, think about things that we can do to prevent them, or to think about things once they happen. This is also interesting. When people are forced to think about the worst case scenario happening, there's mostly always something they can find they could do after that. It's never the end of the world as they thought it would be. So it gives you a lot more options, and it's really worth digging deep when it comes to analyzing your fears. If you're interested, this is a full exercise. You can download it from my homepage. I'll share the link in the end, but you can also find it online. It was developed by someone named Tim Ferriss, and he called it the fear setting exercise. There's even a TED talk about it if you're interested. It's very recommendable. You can Google for Tim Ferriss and fear setting exercise. You'll find this full exercise, which also has some additional steps apart from the one I just described. Now, number 2, and I was really debating whether this should be number 1 on the list, because I can't stress enough how important it is to have a strong support system. Usually for most people, you might think, oh, I have my friends, my close friends, I have my family. They're normally your first choice. But the challenge is this: because they are the people closest to you, they're also the people that care the most about you. And depending on how they perceive your career change, they might think this is something risky. They might react with surprise, with shock, even with disapproval. I experienced this myself when I told, certain people or friends about my plans to switch my career, to become self-employed. They would say, oh, but are you sure that's what you want to be doing? Isn't that really risky? And I mean, you're already 40 years old, you have 2 kids, as if I hadn't already been losing sleep myself over all these things. But I realized they're just projecting their own doubts and fears on me, which is fine, right? It's just I needed to learn to identify, to find the people who are supporting me. So it's really important to find the people who are supporting you and then surround yourself with those people. On top of that, it's important to be very clear what it is that you need from these people. Let them know how they can best help you, how they can support you. Because different people might fulfill different roles for you. You might have people that, a friend that you can go to if you need more sort of business advice. And you might have another friend that, you can always call if you need a sympathetic ear, somebody you can vent your frustrations to. So be very clear with people what it is you need from them, how they can best help you. The next one, focus on your strengths, or how I like to put it, stop improving your weaknesses. To me personally, this idea that our biggest potential for growth lies in our weaknesses is a misconception, because it can actually, if you constantly focus on your weakness, on something you're not good at, it can lead to lower self-esteem. And here's why. I believe at least that your life follows your focus. Or I think, like Tony Robbins puts it, where your focus goes, your energy flows. And if you're constantly focused on something that you're lacking, something you're not good at, something that's still missing, this can actually leave you feeling more demotivated and stressed. Okay? So instead, focus on your strengths, focus on what you're good at. This is especially true if you're looking to start your own business. So identifying your key strengths is the best starting point. It allows you to build on something you already have. So it allows you to grow faster and to stay motivated for longer. Okay? For me personally, that was again something, kind of a revelation that I had in my previous job. I was always a sensitive person. And once I got promoted to a leadership position, I really felt my sensitivity is a weakness. I often wished I had, I could tone down my sensitivity. I could have a thicker skin, so I wasn't impacted as much by some of the things that I experienced. But then when I decided to go into coaching, I realized this same weakness was actually a strength. It allowed me to connect with people on a deeper level, to be more empathetic, to put myself in someone else's shoes. And it really allowed me to reframe a weakness into a strength. And since I believe that strengths and weaknesses are just two sides of the same coin, or at least they're situational, they're relative. What could be or what this may be a weakness in one situation can be a strength in another situation. So even if you don't want to go as far as reframing your weaknesses into strengths, start with your strengths. And by that, of course, I don't mean stop learning or stop growing, but start with what you already have. Start with something you're already good at and go from there. So the next one, test the waters. This is something that comes up a lot when I work with my clients, especially after we've already worked together for a while, and they might have developed a certain level of clarity about what it is they want to be doing, what direction they want to go in. They might already have a specific role or field in mind that they want to explore. But then there's always this level of uncertainty. Even though I have identified I want to be a doctor, let's say, how can I really know about the day-to-day realities of being a doctor, the daily challenges and responsibilities? And that's true, you can't. And that's why I think it's really important that even though if you're clear about your new career path, it's a good idea to somehow test the waters before you commit to making a full switch. There are several ways to do this. There is something called job shadowing, for example. And that simply means observing a person or spending a day with a person that works in your desired field or in your desired role. And so you get these insights into the daily responsibilities and challenges of a specific job. Another option is internships. I have clients who decide to make an internship in a certain field. The additional bonus is so you get more insights because you're exposed to it for a longer time. And if you're lucky, you even get paid. Volunteering is another great option that you can do. Something else that what I did personally and what I recommend if it's possible for you is keep your full-time job and then start working part-time in the field you want to go into. For me, when I made the transition to become a coach, I was actually still working for my previous company. In fact, to this day on the side, I'm working part-time as a freelance consultant for my previous employer. But at that time, when I made the switch, it was really what allowed me to make the switch. Because to be honest, I wouldn't have had the courage to make a full switch at that time. But having my old job on the side, having a sort of a safety net allowed me to start exploring the coaching field, working with one or two clients, seeing how that actually is working as a coach. And if you have that option, I can only recommend it. So again, if you have the possibility to test the waters, it can take away a lot of the uncertainty and of the anxiety that can come with making a full switch. Now, last, but by no means least, self-care. And you'll probably hear this or have heard this in the other sessions today. Self-care is really important. To me, self-care is anything you do for yourself that allows you to stay mentally and physically well. What that means is it's really up to you. It's very individual what that could be. Having said that, there are some basics, okay? And they are really the basics as getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, engaging in regular exercise. And I know this may sound like stating the obvious, but it's surprising how many people neglect these very basic self-care practices, and especially when they're under a lot of stress. One thing I want to mention here as well is the concept of self-compassion. Because rejection and disappointment, they are part of almost any career change. And it's really important to be kind to yourself in these situations when something like that happens. I have this often not even with clients, sometimes friends of mine looking for a job. They've been sending out dozens, maybe hundreds of CVs, applied for different roles, maybe got invited to interviews only to be rejected after the first or second round. And the frustration builds up, and what happens is they start beating themselves up. Okay, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I just don't, I'm not getting there. And what I do in these moments is I tell them, imagine your best friend is in the same situation. They're experiencing what you're experiencing right now. And they came to you to talk about it. What would you tell them? How would you react? And of course, everybody says, oh no, I would tell them, don't lose hope, or you got this, or I'm here for you. If you need support, just, you can count on me. And then I tell them, well, can you say that to yourself? Can you be your own best friend? Because that's what self-compassion is really about. What I also want to mention here is mindfulness. And it could be mindfulness, it could be meditation, it could be yoga, anything that helps you get in touch with yourself. And I know some people tell me, I'm already so stressed, I'm so busy, I don't have time to start yoga classes now. Or I certainly don't have the patience to sit cross-legged on the floor each morning with my eyes closed for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be as complicated. Mindfulness can be practiced in so many different ways. It can really be as simple as focusing on your breath for just a few seconds or a minute. That's actually what I have. On my laptop, I have an app that my screen goes dark every 20 minutes. I get this reminder to do my breathing exercise. I look away from my screen, which has the added benefit of giving my eyes a bit of rest, do my breathing exercise for 30 seconds, and I can come back. It can be as simple as that. Again, it's important to find something that works for you. Don't start yoga if you're not interested in yoga just because all your friends are doing that. Find something that works for you. All right, that was already it. That was my 5 most important strategies as I see them personally. Again, it's about analyzing or getting clear about your fears. It's that support system, really, really important. Identify those people who are supporting you. Let them know how they can help you. Start with your strengths, forget your weaknesses for a moment. Test the waters, make a gradual transition if you can. And above all, practice self-care, practice mindfulness. So we're right on time. I have 4 more minutes. So if you would like to ask any questions, I'll also stop the recording now. So feel free to come back on camera, ask any questions, or write the questions into the chat. I'll have a look there. But at this point, I'd like to thank you for joining my session, for joining the UP Zürich Strengthen Up event today. I hope you find it useful. You learned something new. If you're interested in these kind of topics, I invite you to visit my website, my blog, or follow me on LinkedIn, where I post content regularly about all topics related to mental health, to growth, to personal development. And of course, if you wish, get in touch. I always look forward to an interesting exchange. I'm happy to share from my own experience. So feel free to get in touch. And thank you again. I'll stop the recording now. And